Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Valise Perez, Product Marketing Manager at Vera, and I'm here with Grant Shirk, who's our Senior Director of Product Marketing.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
So today we're going to talk about Modern IRM, a new set of data security tools that's incredibly easy for your team to use. And we're also going to show you a demo, a product demo of Modern IRM in action. A couple of housekeeping matters. If you have any questions, definitely pass them along. There's a chat box on the lower left, and we'll be sure to answer your questions at the end. For those of you that are new to Vera, we are a data security company based in Palo Alto, and our mission is really to protect customer data no matter where it goes or who has it. And so with that, let's dive right in. So Modern IRM is going to give you complete control of your data without changing how your team works. And it's really overcoming the limitations of traditional IRM tools and characterized really by four things. First, it's going to secure any kind of data at rest and in use. So it's going to secure any content type, any file type. It's designed for work. So it's going to be very, very easy for your team to use. It's intuitive, and it's really a zero friction solution. Third, it's going to protect data anywhere it travels, on-prem or in the cloud. And finally, it's going to give you that full control of your data, even if it moves offline, even if it moves to an unmanaged domain, a different device, a different platform. And so why is this important? So at Vera, something we see a lot is that no matter what business you're in, we're all trying to answer one really important question. And that is, can my security adapt to the future of work? The way we work is changing, it's evolving. And so how do we secure information in this new environment? What tools do we need to protect that information? And Grant, would love to hear from you. Why are we talking about the future of work? Why has this happened?
Yeah, thanks for passing that over. I think this is a really interesting topic because it's that phrase at the end of that question, the future of work, is something that we've been hearing increasingly used both from analysts who watch the areas of collaboration and security and innovation, but we're also starting to hear it from customers, and certainly we're hearing it echoed in the language received from other vendors, other technology companies. And I think it's a big puzzle that everybody's trying to put together. But over the past couple years, we've seen some really interesting trends start to develop. And I think some of them are symptoms of what's happening underneath. I think some of them are underlying causes that's driving that. I wanted to talk through a few of those because I think it's really helpful to understand why we even need Modern IRM in the first place, and maybe what some of the shortcomings are of the current tools we've all been working with. There was a study published a couple of weeks ago by RightScale, and it was a broad survey, and they were largely looking at adoption of different kinds of technology and platforms with CIOs and CISOs and other leaders of IT organizations. And the headline was a very interesting one, which was that across the survey that they did, around the world, organizations of a few hundred to many thousands of employees, 93% of them self-reported that they had formally adopted cloud platforms to drive core business processes, which was probably not surprising to those of us who work in the industry, and probably for those of you who are the ones who are making this decision in the first place. But what I thought was particularly interesting about that is if you look back to the survey that they did asking the same question just 2 years ago in 2013, that number was 47%. And so I think what that shows us is that the progression of IT through this change. I think that when done right, the information technology and information sciences organization, they tend to go through 2 or 3 distinct phases. One is the reactive phase, which I think is what we saw in 2013, which was where most of those organizations were experimenting with the cloud. People were bringing tools in. Mobile was really starting to take hold. That was kind of the height of the MDM market, really. But they were reacting to the need to do more with this different technology. And then it passed through the phase of evaluation, assessment, and kind of strategic planning. And now through the last 12 months, we've really seen IT shift into that valuable phase of our function, which is the proactive planning, implementation, and rollout of this technology. So we're kind of seeing the evolution of these platforms. And so that's good in general, right? They give us a lot of flexibility, but it still doesn't really answer that question of, well, why? Why is this such a big deal? It's not just cost. It's not just flexibility. It's a lot of different things put together. And for me, I think the answer to this question, the cause to the effect of this broad adoption, is really summed up nicely in a series of ideas that were published in a book a little while ago, actually. Many of you probably read it. It's by Stephen Johnson, and it's called Where Good Ideas Come From. And it's this really interesting study of innovation throughout history. What fosters it? Where does it come from? And his central thesis is that the myth of the lone innovator, the standalone genius, is just that. It's largely a myth. And that the places where real innovation, real progress, whether it's technological or social or business, comes when people work across boundaries and combine ideas and combine information. And I thought this quote was probably the best summation of it, is that good ideas become great when they are connected to and fused with other ideas. And the best way for that to happen is when they cross this idea of a conceptual border. So when two people or two organizations with potentially different goals, different ideas, different points of view on the world, bring an idea together, it catches fire, right? It adds the magnesium to the heat, and something wonderful happens. And that is, for me, and what we're seeing with our customers, really what defines the future of work. It's the idea that we are no longer working inside a well-defined container. We are working as much with partners and vendors and hopefully customers outside of our organizations as we are with the team down the hall. And that is what drove initially a lot of this reactive cloud adoption, and what is now powering the proactive rollout of these services, because it enables organizations to be more innovative, more competitive, and ultimately helps your teams be more successful. Now, there's a flip side of this. I think if we take those two data points together, this broad sanctioned adoption of cloud platforms and the reasons behind it, that looked great on the surface. But one of the things that we've noticed is if you dig yet one level deeper, there are problems that still exist. We're still in a transitional phase. And one of those is that as we've adopted these services, we've become very, very fragmented. So what on the surface looks like a cloud, right? I mean, to really kind of go back to the original whiteboard metaphor of what this is, it looks homogeneous on the surface. But that cloud, if you dive into it, actually looks a lot more like a series of islands. And we see a lot of behavior both on the systems and the process side that can exacerbate that challenge. And what we see is that for all of those businesses who have adopted the cloud, the lion's share of them, more than 4 or 5, use a portfolio of services not just to deliver these processes, but to segregate, segment, and manage information. And they're doing that for a number of reasons, but it creates, and I'm sure you've all seen this, a lot of challenges. If you take this approach, right, and you are trying to really fit data into your various cloud services, you have to make a lot of assumptions about what you're doing with that information. Some for good reasons and some for bad. And this is where I think we start running into the challenges with traditional ways of managing information and rights to information. Many companies will have their on-premise systems still, that they're still running their legacy systems. For larger organizations, that often lives in what looks like a private cloud or a set of virtual machines. But that's the information that we want to really protect the most, kind of the crown jewels data. And the assumption is that, well, okay, we'll keep that on-prem. And we absolutely have the tools to do that. But as we've learned, that is not necessarily practical. And so they go through this exercise of classifying information, rewriting policies. I've got to keep financial and HR data over here. I can put sales and marketing data in this service. And then, oh, I've got to run these external data rooms over here in another world that's completely cut off. And that is an approach many companies have taken, but it's not necessarily a beneficial one. Because when you start making these assumptions, you assume that this data that I put on this island is going to stay here. I'm going to quarantine it. We know from biology and human migration and even the way information travels across our businesses, that just isn't true. It's not a safe assumption to make. And at the same time, all of this almost physical separation of information creates a lot of frustration in your employees and really gives them the incentive to start trying to go around these restrictions. I mean, not to play out the metaphor too long, but it's very easy to build a boat and get from one island to the next. If I need to get my job done, if that's where I need to go, I'm going to go there. I'm going to do it. And the problem is when you base a security solution off of a number of set assumptions, you're good until those assumptions are false. And so as soon as information starts moving, all of a sudden the protections you've put in place break down. And I think that is really why we do need to start modernizing IRM. There are solutions that have existed in the past that work under these assumptions of either homogeneous data sets or controlled kind of inviolate containers. But that no longer kind of works forward. And so I want to spend a few minutes talking through why the approaches of the past have been a challenge, and really what you need to be looking for and what benefits you can get by modernizing your approach to information rights management. So there's really three kind of categories that I think through it, and it's a bit of a progression. Originally, when people tried to tackle this problem, they were using tools that I think of as kind of classic DRM. And these were focused on the assumption that the information we're protecting is largely the same. It's a single set of file types, or it comes from a single vendor, or all of my technology sits in a single stack. And so the limitations and assumptions that they made were that, okay, well, maybe I'm only working with Office files. I'm only working with PDF files. Don't worry about those videos and online data and everything else that we're doing. They were also built for a world where every device essentially had a big old CRT sitting on top of it. It was fixed to a desk. If you were really good, you had a mechanical keyboard. And it had an Ethernet cable stuck out of the back. It was, again, everything was on a continent of information as opposed to a chain of islands. And it made the assumption that everybody's stack looked exactly like your stack. And this worked okay, but you still never had control of that information when it left. And so as information starts to move more rapidly, it creates a huge host of problems. We also saw very low adoption with those tools. So the next iteration of this started to say, okay, well, let's assume we have that series of islands, that chain of islands of information that we're using, and let's do some storage-centric IRM. Again, the simplifying assumption there was that, well, we're all going to work in this one container, and everyone's going to be happy with that container, and all the data lives in one environment. The problem is, though, as we know, is once you start allowing information to move, it's got inertia. It's going to continue moving unless something of equal force stops it, and we haven't really found what that is yet. It just doesn't work. And also, it started to proliferate account credentials and passwords and new accounts. So I always used to tell people that if you have one cloud storage service at your company, I guarantee you have at least 5. And so you've got your marketing team in one cloud trying to talk to your sales team in another cloud, trying to talk to your HR team in the third cloud, and near the middle shall they meet. And so you don't want your teams to have to manage all of these credentials. You want something a little simpler, a little more standardized. But you need to be able to address the concerns of a broader ecosystem of data and information. And that's really where modern IRM comes in, and we'll kind of show you some of these examples in practice in just a moment here. But the reason that we need a modern IRM solution, the reason that you need to rethink this for your organization is that you have to now make that fundamental assumption that your data not only will travel, but is traveling. It's going to cross islands, it's going to cross continents. And that's for a good reason. You need to be working with people outside of your organization in order to move the business forward. And so to do that, you have to find a solution that really moves the level of control down to the data itself, whether it's a file, whether it's structured information, whatever it happens to be. And you have to be able to do that across any platform. And moreover, you have to do that in a way that balances people's need to get their job done without changing the way they do it, and your need to control and monitor where that information is. And it is a balancing act, but the modern IRM tools that are out there now, including Vera, do address that problem directly, and that's kind of our core reason for being. Now, if you're going to do that, if you're going to make this decision to move forward, certainly there are immediate benefits around the security of the information that you're protecting, for your ability to audit and see the full chain of control over information, and really break down these artificial barriers between these different islands. But there are three kind of second-level benefits that we're seeing customers who do take on a modern IRM approach are really getting. The first and most important is a broader adoption of security. One of the biggest challenges is the social challenge in security. How do I get my team, my organization, to act and think in a more secure way? And usually one of the biggest barriers to that is the user experience. So if you give them something that's transparent and easy to use, works anywhere, works outside, works inside, they're going to use it because there's really no reason not to. Give you that full control over data everywhere. So I can see if information makes it to a place where I don't want it to go, and not just see it and worry about it, but actually be able to take action and even be able to prove that someone who shouldn't have had access to that data shouldn't. Huge for risk and compliance. And then finally, at the end of the day, what you're going to do is accelerate collaboration and accelerate innovation, because people are going to trust more that they can share information that they need to, whether it's customer lists or marketing data or whatever it happens to be. So those are kind of the concepts and the benefits, but we've got about 10 minutes left, and so I really wanted to pass this back over to Devlise, who's going to show, I think, how one of our customers is using modern IRM techniques in their business.
Great.
And then if you do have questions, please get them into the chat box, and we'll reserve some time at the end.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Grant. So what I'd actually love to do in this demo is show how one of our customers uses Vera to do precisely those three things that you just pointed out. How they're using Vera to drive adoption of security, how they're using it to improve collaboration across customers and partners, and to get that full control of data anywhere. So we talked to a ton of companies that have visual assets. And these assets can be anything from images, medical images, movie clips, design files. And the companies need to share information to maybe complete a particular project, but they don't want the other party keeping their content. Right? They want to maintain control over the file because it's ultimately what gives them their competitive edge, that identity. And so they're looking to collaborate, but also secure. And one of the reasons they love Vera and they like this modern IRM approach is because they can secure assets directly as they share them, but as they share them with the tools that they want and that they like, be it Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, email, and that drives adoption of security. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And what I'm looking at is an email here that I am going to send to Tom, who is let's say a designer, a freelance designer that I'm working with. And I want to share this image for the upcoming King Kong movie, which is set to be released in 2017. And so I've attached the image, and as soon as I've done that, Vera pops up right here, and it's going to ask me to choose what policy, what rights I want Tom to have. And so let's say I want to give him view-only rights with a watermark. I select that here, and I click send. And so the minute that I do that, Vera is going to encrypt the file and attach that view-only, those watermark rights, into the file, and I'll show you what the experience is going to look like with Tom receiving the file. So I'm going to swing over to Tom's machine, This is a different world, and I've sent that to Tom's email. And just for context, Tom actually has never heard of Vera. Tom does not have a Vera client. He does not know Vera exists. And he's just received this email from me, and he's going to go open it the way he would a normal email. So as he clicks download, what we're going to notice is that Vera is going to pop up and give him two options. One, Tom, you can download Vera. You can download the Vera client, or no thanks. I'll just view it in the browser. And so I select View Now, and the image is going to open up in the browser and actually enforce the access controls that I selected. It's going to enforce watermark rights on the King Kong image. You'll also notice this Vera policy bar, which will tell Tom what his rights are. So he can't make a copy, he can't print it, he can't. This image isn't time bombed, and so in this way, Vera is instantly improving that collaboration that Grant was talking about between partners. It's super easy to act securely with the tools that you love. So now let's say that I no longer work with Tom. I've completed the project, but I don't want him having access to this file. It's a file. This is a movie coming up in next year, and I just don't want him having access to it anymore. So what I'm going to do is swing back over to my machine, to Valise's machine, and I'm going to go to the Vera dashboard. And the Vera dashboard is gives you a ton of information relating to the security, how many secure files you have, just the level of security in your organization. If I click Files, I can actually dive in to that same file that I just secured. So it's the King Kong JPEG image. I can see that it's been accessed one time by Tom. And I can also immediately take action. So I no longer want to work with Tom, so I can just select him and change his access. So I can click Revoke Access and turn off his access to that sensitive file. And so I'll swing back again to Tom and pull that image and show you what the experience here is gonna look like. He's gonna download it. He's gonna click on it. But Vera is going to pop up and say, hey, Tom, you don't have access to this file. And so with that, Modern IRM Vera is giving me full control of my information, no matter who has it. It's sitting in Tom's inbox, but he can't open it. And so I am going to go back to our slides and kind of recap what Modern IRM is. So it's this data-centric approach that secures your information anywhere. It's really securing any type of data, any file type. And in our case, we showed a JPEG image. It's super seamless. If you don't have a client, it doesn't matter. You can still act and interact with secure files. It protects your data anywhere it travels, even in the browser, and it gives you complete control of the information, even if it moves offline, even if it's in a browser. I can enforce the access controls that I want on that critical business information. And so with that, would love to open it up to questions and hear from you.
Great, yeah, so if you do have questions, a few have come in already, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we will get to them as we can when we have time. We've got a few minutes left here, but let's see what's coming in. And if there are those of you who do have to go, I'll leave this up here for your reference. You can always come and get more information about us, or actually even engage in conversations about what's the latest in security and collaboration at Vera Security on Twitter. Always love to hear from people in the industry. So let's see, number one, the first one I've got here. Valise, maybe you can take this one. So by doing all of this, where does Vera put my files? Where does Vera store them?
Yeah, so that's a common question. Vera actually does not store or process your data. It doesn't look into the actual contents of your files. The only thing that so Grant, to answer your question, the file lives wherever the user stores it. The only thing Vera stores is the access controls, the policies, the permissions, that metadata.
Got it. Okay, great. That's good. I think that actually leads into the next question, which is, so how does this work if you're not based in email? What if you upload the file that you're sharing to a sharing site like Box or Dropbox?
Yeah, the great thing about Vera, and the way I always describe it, Vera is the secure shell that remains attached to the file wherever it goes. So if you're not sharing the information over email, if you are uploading into a Box or a Dropbox or a local file share, Vera, again, protects your information, and those access controls, maybe that watermark that Tom had, it would still remain with the file anywhere, which is incredible, and it's a huge, huge benefit to companies that have multiple cloud services, multiple cloud platforms in their organization. Their information is secure anywhere.
Yep, okay. I'm going to go, I think we've got time for about 2 more, so to help, I'm going to combine 2 from 2 different people because I think it's part of the same conversation. So part of it is so wait, what is it, Belize, you said in use, securing data in use, what does that mean? Does Vera's encryption remain if someone is given permission to open a file? Kind of how do we manage that document itself? And then related, what stops Tom from forwarding that information? Kind of how did he authenticate against it? How do we know it's him? So I'll take a first crack at that and then kind of dive in. So when we talk about data in use, we really see it as kind of a third category of data protection. Everybody knows, you have to deal with data, securing data in transit as it's moving between point to point with SSL and TLS. You have to secure and encrypt that data when it's at rest, when it's on the store, on your drive, or encrypt the drive. But what Vera does is it actually encrypts and protects the data in use. So if I am editing the file, working with the file, making changes, we are staying in a secure environment, a secure container. We actually can restrict your ability to copy information out of an encrypted file and put it into an unencrypted one to make sure that you're always working in a secure world. And then we do that based on identity. So one of the things that we did skip over quickly on the Tom demo was he actually authenticated against Vera with his email address, with his identity. And you can do that by integrating with something like Okta or Ping or Centrify or Active Directory, or you can do an out-of-band notification. So for the demo purposes, we moved through that pretty quickly. But usually he would say, prove you are who you say you are. Give me your email address, whatever it happens to be. I'm going to prove you own that account. And we found that is the most efficient and effective way to get authentication managed across devices, whether it's desktop or mobile or whatever it happens to be. And then to finalize that, what stops Tom from forwarding it? Well, that's the interesting thing. We're not storing the document, so we can't stop Tom from moving information. I can't stop Tom from forwarding it to a personal email address, from putting on a public web share. However, because we are identity-driven, nobody except for Tom in the scenario that Belize showed can access that file. So Tom could send it to Nick. He could send it to Paul. He could send it to Phoebe. They'd all get a message that says, sorry, you don't have access to this file. So actually going to persist that protection. Even if somebody tries to do a save as, like that protection is going to follow the file. All right, Louise, is there anything else in here you want to cover?
No, so Tom was using a Gmail address, and I think you mentioned this. So he would have authenticated using Google, but Vera also integrates with Okta and with other identity providers. So if that's something that's part of your organization, anyone using Vera could authenticate using those types of solutions.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. I want to be respectful for everybody here. Thank you for joining us. I see there are 3 or 4 questions we did not get to. What Belize and I will do is when we get all of the logs from this, we'll actually follow up with you with those answers. And if you do have other questions, again, you can catch us at Vera Security, or I'm just Grant at Vera.com, and Belize is Belize at Vera.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you, everyone. We're going to conclude our webcast now, but we hope to hear from you and talk to you in the future. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.